Welcome back to Sector 7. Today, we're going to talk about the budget URGI build and how you can achieve this very same build under $1,000 or right around $1,000 without making any big compromises. It might take some time, but if you have the time and you have the patience, it does cost a lot less to do your own build generally than it does to buy a fully assembled rifle. Now, I use the term URGI loosely. This is a 16-inch barrel rather than a 14.5 inch. And it's got a 15-inch Mark 16 Geisley rail on it, which I actually like a lot. Because for me, that justified getting the optic that I've been looking at for a long time. And that's going to be the Vortex Razor Gen 2 with the EBR 7 Foxtrot reticle in it. Okay. I've spoken about this reticle before. This is the razor that was specifically chosen for Ranger Battalion to give them a bullet drop compensator, kind of similar to an ACOG, but it's calibrated to M855A1. And given the fact that most of the time I'm going to be shooting either 77 grain out of this or normal M855 out of this, the 16-inch barrel aids in the velocity to where the bullet drop compensator actually lines up perfectly. There's about a 0 to 50 feet per second variance in there, which is not enough from 0 to 400 meters to really affect your holdovers, right? Now, one of the first things that people are going to mention more than likely when they look at this rifle is right out of the gate, that is not $1,000 rifle. And that's correct. When you include all of the accessories, the optics, the lights, the laser, this far exceeds that, especially if you're going to include things like my Surefire RC2. But what we're talking about here is the baseline rifle. Now, I got lucky initially. I was contacted by fellow YouTuber Uncompliant, and he asked me if I wanted to go ahead and pick this up from him for $750. When he did the build breakdown for me, it was about dollar for dollar what it cost him to actually build. So he pretty much made his money back on it. The heart of this rifle is going to be the Ballistic Advantage SPR barrel. Immediately, I can already predict, there's people on Reddit who say Ballistic Advantage barrels are going to get you killed in the streets. Well, that may be the case. But for $130, we were able to achieve a 1 MOA barrel that should last me enough rounds to get myself killed by other means, right? So if you're getting killed because you have exceeded the 20,000 round barrel life of your barrel, then you've gone through a whole lot of firefights before getting to that point and probably won a couple of medals of honor. So for me, starting out, I want to talk about kind of how the build came to me initially. So Uncompliant sent this to me with an A2 bird cage, and that saved on cost. He runs a gate lock suppressor from Griffin Armament. As cool as those are, I prefer the Surefire family of suppressors and muzzle devices myself. So the first thing I swapped out was the Surefire for about 150 bucks, right? So now we're sitting at about 900. Well, what else needed to be swapped out? Almost nothing. The trigger was a standard mil-spec trigger that was absolute trash. So what I went and did was I spent $79, I believe it was, for a LaRue NBT trigger. And I went and I spent $15 for a Springco blue spring. The funny thing about this rifle, so this is mid-length gas system with a BCM, both BCM gas block as well as a BCM gas tube. It shoots soft enough that I can run a standard carbine buffer with the Springco blue spring, and whether it's suppressed or unsuppressed, it's not overgassed. It's very soft shooting. It's very pleasant. Probably my only complaint would be the noise back here in the back of the buffer can be a little bit annoying when you're shooting under suppression. Another thing that I changed out, it came with a SopMod enhanced stock that I wasn't a huge fan of, so I went ahead and swapped it out to the Magpul CTR, just one of my favorite stocks in general. And then everything else about this thing is super standard across the board. For the bolt carrier group, we've got a Toolcraft nickel boron BCG. And again, you know, when we mention longevity, I would be more concerned with the longevity of a nickel boron BCG than I would be with just the ballistic advantage barrel on its own. This rifle is not my main rifle. My LMT Spec War is most definitely my main rifle, but objectively the LMT Spec War is less pleasant to shoot, it's less accurate, and just overall it's more of a duty oriented workhorse, and this is a little bit more of a specialized carbine. You could call this an SPR, you could call it a GPR, you could call it a recce rifle, whatever nomenclature you want to apply to it. For me, the important aspects are having a laser, having a light, having a good optic on it, and then having cross compatibility across all of my AR platforms so I can swap my suppressor back and forth between them and it function as a suitable host. Now, the receiver set on this, I believe, was just, Jesus Christ. The receiver set on this, I believe, was just a PSA. And the 15-inch Mark 16 was a blem that Uncompliant was able to get for under 200. So if you sit there and you really bargain shop, don't worry about the bad reputation of PSA when it comes to their internals. This is all BCM internals, BCM gas system, LaRue trigger, Surefire muzzle, ballistic advantage barrel. There's nothing PSA in this other than the receiver set itself, and the receiver set functions just fine. Again, we have quantifiable proof that this can shoot one MOA, and it can dump several hundred rounds without any sort of hiccups across the board. So I'm really happy with this build right here. Earlier we did a accuracy comparison between the LMT Spec War 12.5 and this ballistic advantage build, and what was really interesting was that the LMT at its best sat right around 2 MOA, and the ballistic advantage at its best sat a little bit under 2 MOA. So we're looking at somewhat comparable levels of accuracy, with this edging it out just a little bit. And all things equal, we did add the Vortex Razor to the LMT so that we're being as fair in our assessment as possible. But just keep in mind, I am a human being. I didn't shoot from the bench. You have factors, environmental factors, lighting, eyesight, the type of kit that I'm wearing, how tired I am. So there's a little bit of room for human error there. But to the best of my ability, you know, I was trying to beat this thing with my LMT because we're looking at diminishing returns here. So you look at this, and this is a $3,000 rifle. You look at the $1,000 rifle, and you automatically assume that that $3,000 rifle is going to perform better just across the board no matter what. That's not necessarily the case in terms of performance, in terms of how soft it is to shoot, how accurate it is, you know, how pleasant it is, how well gassed it is. What I can say for certain is that I'm confident the LMT will outlast the ballistic advantage. But when you're looking at an LMT barrel that costs upward of $500 to $600 compared to a ballistic advantage barrel that costs $130, if I shoot this baby out, I can just buy 3 more for the same price as the LMT. So I think it's a pretty strong argument. I don't want to sit here and put too much fluff on my talking head portion of the video. We'll roll in some B-roll to kind of quantify some of the statements that I have to make about these. Let me know if you want me to do a little bit more in-depth talking about the LMT or talking about the RC2, anything like that. Let me know if you got any questions about my outfit. I don't care. I do want to finalize with one thing, and this is just your basic YouTuberism. About 90% of my viewers are not subscribers, and this is a small operation. I'm not funded by any outside sources. I have not been bought and paid for. I am not shilling stuff for, you know, I'm not getting paid to shill and grift to you. All right, I'm just a guy, ex-military, who loves shooting, who's passionate about what he does and wants to share his knowledge with you. So please consider liking and subscribing. And if you've got any questions, hit me down in the comments below. I really appreciate it. This has been Sector 7.